today company review is about Apple. Apple's brand slogan is think different. So before I go on, usually I do my terminology. So one of the maybe important thing would be OS, which stands for operating system, which is system software that manages computer hardware, software resources, and provides common services. So what it does is it's your out interface of your computer. So let's look at Apple's timeline. This is actually started in 1981. Look how the stock has gone up. And I didn't actually know that Apple was a product. Like, it's been out there for a very, very long time. First, if you think about Apple, what do you guys think of? iPod? 그치? 와! For people who's like born in like 1999, wow, maybe they don't know what this is. They'd be like, how do you use this, right? 그때는 우리 이렇게 막 돌리고 위에로 여기 보면 이거 위에로 search songs 이렇게 돌리고 클릭하고 and then best thing was when you had to play games, right? Maybe iPhone. This is first iPhone, guys. This was sensational. This coming out with iPhone was sensational. But a lot of people think, I guess depending on when you were born, if you were born in maybe 1994 like me, you might have think Apple was an iPod company, so MP3 player, and then moved from iPhone to iPad. But actually what it was is that it's a computer company. What? Yeah, floppy disk, guys. Yeah, when I was doing this, I was like, wow, reminiscing. A lot of reminiscing time. See, I don't know what Macintosh was, so I'm still young. But let's start way back when the company first started was 1976, April 1st, so which is April Fool's Day. Ha 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 ha. April Fools. We had two guys. Steve Jobs. We all know Steve Jobs. So less about him, and Steve Wozniak. A lot of people call him Woz. So Woz was actually a computer science major, and so he wanted to develop computer along with Steve Jobs. So they ended up dropping out of college and then developing this so-called Apple product. And the first product that they developed was this. It introduced a first low-cost microcomputer system with a video terminal and 8K bytes with the RAM on a single PC card. So I think they kind of developed a motherboard that does everything. That can be connected to a monitor and a keyboard and you can play things on it, right? 그래서 it's the Apple computer. It's like a little cassette board that works. No more switches, no more lights. And so the first product that they developed was called Apple One. Wow, this is actually how they look. I don't know exactly. 그래서 스펙을 가져왔어. I got the spec. Funny thing about the $666.66, apparently Steve Jobs wanted to have it at $777.77, but because it was too expensive, he dropped $111.11 lower, which I thought was funny. Anyways, the spec of this Apple One computer is that it runs on an MOS technology, 무슨 processor, memory with 4K RAM, so you can port any standard keyboard that's installed in any monitor to this, and you could display a frame rate of 60. One thing to note about in this Apple One product is that games could be programmed and played on, so it was mostly for games. And he actually wrote this language called BASIC. And what happened in the end about this Apple One product is that they could get profit from this product. I think they were forced to make 50 of these, and they sold it to a retail store, and they were able to make profit. So in 1977, he developed something called Apple 2, which was a very big success. So let's look at the spec. You can do RAM and ROM upgrades 도 되고, 8 expansion slots 도 되고, you can display a 6 fixed color of 280. What this was also good is that you can connect your TV to Apple 11 as a monitor. So this was sensational. So this had good spec. I think the biggest thing was that you can get a 16 fixed colors and sound. So this was a great success in Apple product. First thing, wow, success, woo! So you think that because they were kind of like the first runner in Apple, like computer product, they would be the industry leader and they would like succeed. 근데 그게 아니었어. That was not the case. Even if they were able to sell 100,000 Apple products by 1980. So what happened in 1980 is that IBM came. Wow, competitors! So a lot of competitors are coming out, right? So one of them would be IBM. We had like HP도 있고 뭐 등등등. And so IBM came up with their first computer. This was called, I think this was just called an IBM PC. Yeah, so they entered the PC market. One thing good about this IBM computer, it had the Microsoft DOS and a microprocessor from Intel. And the fact that they did it as an open source was a big thing. What open source is, a lot of people could be using their source. And so Apple was like, wow! I'm fighting against this IBM PC, but they get all their like help from Intel, Microsoft, and you can have it open source. Holy crap! So they developed something called Macintosh in 1984. They were like, we can't lose to this IBM. Like, we're gonna develop something similar but better. And so this Macintosh was all self-product by but the bad thing about Macintosh versus IBM is that, remember, IBM was based off of like Intel, which is #1 microprocessor company, and Microsoft versus Macintosh, where it was like made by was like self-made. So the computer itself was much slower, which kind of sucks. So in the end, what happened was Apple's net income fell to 62%. I'm guessing because of IBM. And what kind of sucked was that Jobs was fired from his job. Fired인가? Job, yeah. Job, they were like, Job, you're not doing your job right. Get out. He left, and we had a new guy named John Scully. So now we're introducing John Scully. Guess who John Scully is in this picture? I'm middle guy, definitely, right? Now, who is Scully? He was an executive that was recruited from Pepsi Cola for his marketing skills, right? So he knew how to market things, and so he was like, okay, we're gonna change this around. We're gonna get this down. So one thing that he focused mostly on was focus on education and in product. So for example, a lot of like when you get a computer, you have a lot of products in it. In Apple terms, you would have like the iMovie, iTunes that was pre-installed in your computer. So he's like, okay, when we're selling these, we're gonna have really cool products inside so that like people would be interested. So one thing that he got in for the in products was this PageMaker. Wow, what is this PageMaker? It's a company named Aldus PageMaker, which ended up being Adobe. Ooh. But this went out of product. And this, in education-wise, he was able to grab half the market. So by 1990, that's when my brother was born. 와, 이때까지 있었어? Apple had $1 billion in cash and was most profitable PC company in the world. So if you look at the graph, it's still like, I bet here it kind of got like the, like it's going up. So he's like, oh, we're gonna have like good solution and everything. So he's like, wow, good company. However, in 1990, when they were in the company lead, Microsoft introduced Windows 3.0, and IBM also reduced their computer price a lot. So they had to go against Macintosh, which was self-developed, and they couldn't have the price any lower. So the lowest they had in price-wise was a $999 of Mac class. Because he tried to move it mainstream, but it wouldn't work. Because remember, IBM had a lot of helpers like Microsoft and Intel, while Apple didn't. Oh, also, another thing that Scully tried to do was, because he needed help, like you can't make things on your own and try to succeed, right? He's like, okay, IBM, I need your help. So he's decided to forge an alliance with IBM back in 1991. Yeah, finding this article was the hardest thing in my life. I could not search it. So they wanted to work to create a new venture by creating a new PC OS. So not using the OS that was developed before, and to aim to have a multimedia application. And so they wanted to work around the project with Novell and Intel, rework the Mac OS that they had, and run it on an Intel chip. But their gross margin actually did not increase, and it fell 34%. So what happened was, Scully's like, okay, I can't do it. Like, nope, I tried my best. No more. Yep, we're done. We're done. Don't give me any blames. Like, I'm good. So in 1993, Michael Splinder came. And so he's like, okay, we're gonna throw away all the things that, like, the other guy did. We're gonna license a lot of things to make, like, Mac clones. IBM or Microsoft, they were able to have like clones, so third party used their stuff, but Apple didn't. But now this guy's like, no, okay, use everything, which was kind of against what Steve Jobs and Woz kind of wanted to have Apple become. It was against their core competency. And so this guy was like, okay, not only that, but we're also gonna go international. So in 1992, 45% of Apple sale came outside of US. I don't even know how they could get it outside of US. I thought that was cool. Also, in 1995, he was like, okay, IBM and Apple, this is not working. We can't get together. You and I don't work around. Because they spent more than $500 million, but remember, they're both strong companies. So they don't want to lose to each other. They still didn't want to lose. Even if it's like a venture, like they have alliance, they were like, we're still gonna use some of my idea. But IBM's like, no, dude, like we're gonna go on my stuff. And Apple's like, wait. So they spent $500 million, wasted the money, because neither side wanted to switch to a new technology. So he's like, changing guard at Apple. Board says it's enough. Bye. One of the board was like, okay, it's time for a new leadership. This guy, we can't get this thing from this guy. Splinder was like, hey, no, give me one more chance. Like, I can do it. But still, he was fired. So we had the next, how many times did he have to switch, you know? This is like, what, his fourth time? Apple's fourth time of having new CEO? Well, we had Gilbert Amelio. And what Gilbert was, he just ran for maybe 1 year, maybe less than. Now let's maybe it was the software's problem. So we're gonna try a new software and a new OS. And the software, we're gonna use it called NEXT, which was developed by Steve Jobs. And in 1996, why he came up with the new software was that Steve Jobs came back to become a part-time advisor. See, Steve Jobs was very nice. If it was me and someone kicked me out of my company, I would have been like, you suck. But Steve Jobs came back to become a part-time advisor. In 1996, Apple lost 1.6 billion under Amelio, and the world market share tumbled down around 3%. Apple was within 90 days of bankruptcy. 90 days. It's almost. So to save the company, we had Steve Jobs back on the line in September of 1997. Wow! We're back! Dun dun dun! Yeah, Steve Fashion 오늘! I'm Steve Jobs Fashion. Steve Jobs, we missed you! Now, what he wanted to do was, we gotta clean up a lot of the mess that was happening and to do a turnaround, along with a new culture. So, one thing that he decided to do was a closed-door policy. Now, closed-door policy means that we're not gonna share anything outside, and if you were ever hired as like a part-time job, we will never tell you anything. There's gonna be like dummy position. Also, some areas in the company, you needed a certain key to access. That's what closed door policy means. So you can't go anywhere. Another thing that he did was he cleaned up all the weird products that they had. I've only mentioned like Apple 1, Apple 2, but they had like Apple 2C, Apple 2A, Apple 2 something, and then like Macintosh. He only left to 2 versions of Macintosh as a computer, and a portable Macintosh, and focused more on consumers and professionals. So professional meaning as people who were interested in using this professionally, so in business terms. Second, Taiwan! Ni hao! He hired Taiwanese contract assemblers to manufacture Mac products so that it can reamp Apple's like distribution system to more like national chains. So this was back in 1997, and he actually thought of going to Taiwan. And finally, I think this might have been one of a good decision, was that he actually hired Tim Cook. Where did Tim Cook come? He was hired in 1998, actually 1 year after his career in operations at Compaq, IBM, and Intelligent Electronic. And what he did was he was credited for closing Apple's factory and streamline in supply chain. One thing that's added to what Steve Jobs did was he actually created a first web page for direct sale, which looked like this. Wow! Hello! This is webpage in 1998, guys. Wow, compare it to now. 너무 신기하지 않아? So you can click and things came up. You can, I think, actually purchase. Because it was able to set up for direct sales at the time. So it's like, wow! We call this iMac. And also, Steve Jobs was like, we need something not make Apple kind of boring. We need to lighten it up. So he was actually the CEO of Pixar by then in 1986 when he first bought it. But Pixar was sold to Disney in 2006. It kind of broke away from Apple's image of like tired and tarnished image. Like it was more like kidsy and more fun. Like Apple became something new. So now we're gonna introduce a new thing called iMac. Dun dun dun. It actually looked much different from these days, like 1990s computers. If you remember back in 1998-ish, this was when I was 4 years old. I don't think we had a computer back then. But they had like the yellowish color, like the disgusting looking color, like computers. This was the first time like they had colored monitor. So they had like super color coordinated, like you can see here, it's like blue here, and they had this unique mouse, this mouse called Puck Mouse, where it looked like a puck from hockey, you know, the hockey puck. This was the start of like the succeeding line of Apple. So iMac saves Apple in 1998. They were really struggling, but they made a bold move. Apparently it's bright, fast, colorful, compacting, and darling. Now in 2001, Mac OS was invented. So we did talk about Mac OS back then, but this was like the start of like the current Mac OS. This is how they started building off of the Mac OS. But it was made up of Unix-based technology, was developed by NEXT. Remember, NEXT was a company that Steve Jobs used, the language. In 2001, they also decided to open a retail store. This is the Apple Store, guys. The first Apple Store in Virginia. Why they wanted to open an Apple Store was that they wanted to have an experience where people can actually touch, feel the product, and like see it instead of knowing what to buy. So for example, nowadays we have Best Buy to go and look at the products and to understand. But if you think about it back then, what do you think they had? Like, would you actually go to a store? I would think of buying it through a catalog, like the newspaper, or actually hearing it from someone being like, oh, I heard this product, like I purchased this product and seems like it's useful. Maybe it's a good product and you just had things. And so here's a video.
This is our store. And the store's
So this is actually how it looked like, guys. If you think about it, how it would have looked in 2001, I think it's very trendy. You know what I mean? If they had this right now, I think it would be very trendy and people would actually go. Now we move on to iPod. Wow, who used iPod? This is back. 이게 이게 first generation이고 이게 아마 이게 네노인가? 아이팟 네노? 이게 아이팟 뭐냐 big인가? 이거 근데 don't you see a color resemblance? Like don't you see from iMac where the colors kind of came from? 그래서 better picture is this. I found this. 자, 이게 시작이 iPod Classic에서 시작해서 apparently there was an iPod photo, but this failed. 없어. No product line after. 근데 여기 가면은 뭐 아이팟 미니 나오고 여기 계속 클래식. These are all iPod classic. 근데 여기 이제 아이팟 클래식 한 요쯤 가다가 이제 아이팟 네노가 나오네. This is start of iPod Nano. And then you get iPod Shuffle. Shuffle only has music. And it's so small. 네노도 shuffle 됐어. 좀 이상하지만. 자, why iPod was so sensational? Why? 왜? 왜냐면 back when before iPod, they only had MP3 players. 와, MP3 플레이어래. MP3, MP3 could only store 1 hour of music back then. But this iPod that's like unique can put 1,000 songs. And it was only $400, right? 400. So this was sensational. You have like it's like people were walking when you can't see, but you had to squint to see, and they developed glasses, and you're like, oh, live! I can see! And what comes with iPod is iTunes! So one thing interesting about iTunes is this was actually opened in store in 2003, which was a first legal site where you can download music for a pay per song basis. And usually the songs were like 99 cents. Do you guys remember that day? And so a lot of like the 5 major record labels had decided to connect with iTunes and have their songs released here. And so within 3 days of launching, PC owners had downloaded 1 million copies of free iTunes software and had paid for 1 million songs. So by October of 2011, they had sold 16 billion songs and featured the world's largest music catalog. And not only songs, they ended up moving towards like audiobooks, podcasts, just regular books, movies, and TV shows. So with iTunes being developed, the sale on iPod got much higher. So iPod actually had been raised to 304,000 units in 1 quarter. And before iTunes, they only sold 78,000 of iPod. Once you had iTunes, that musics were sold for 99 cents. So you don't need to buy a CD that might be worth like $5, but you only listen to 1 song on the CD. You can now pick all the songs that you want. This was sensational. So that's how it like rose, right? This is like the start. So after iTunes, now we have iPhones. Oh! Yeah, 이때 was like, I've been saying this was the start, but no one can compete against the iPhones back in 2007. So I actually brought the video.
This is one device.
Wow!
And we are calling it iPhone.
Actually, when he was doing this presentation to the people, like this thing right now, it wasn't finished product, guys. So everyone backstage were so worried that it wouldn't actually work. So what they did was they had 3 phones. And then when he was talking about like calling, he used this phone because this phone only was working with calling. So this works. And then he had like the map or the internet service, which he made this phone made it work on this phone. But it was all behind the podium, so you never know because he doesn't have a case on it. It looked all the same. But he ended up getting it to work, so that's what's important, right? First generation, they sold 6 million units over five quarters. 자, next we come to App Store. 와, 이것도, this was back in 2008. Now it's getting recent stuff. Now, what does App Store do? We know App Store. It launched in 2008. It was the first outlet where you can easily download apps directly to your mobile phone. 야, 여기 뭐 eBay도 있어. 야, AIM 있다. AIM. 와, 이거는 뭐야? This was like first generation. 이때 face 비주얼도 있고. 야, they don't have what Twitterific. 야, 이거 Twitter. Do you see Twitterific? It was the first store where you can download apps. But this is only designed for Mac OS, not Android, so Apple products. So you needed to buy an iPhone to use App Store. This is why Android did come in to get like have the Android store, so the Google Play Store. But this was so popular. Like the first 18 month, 4 billion application has been downloaded. And in May 2012, more than 585 applications. Also, developers thought that app stores were much easier to use than Android in terms of like, I will only have to focus on iPhones, like the iPhone series, compared to Android. They have like Samsung phone, Android phone, I don't know, Google phone, like all these phones that has a slight difference. So a lot of developers only prefer to develop in Apple sometimes. And finally, we have iPad. 뭐지? Bad quality. 이때는 진짜 who would buy iPad이었는데 he doesn't want to. A lot of people told him to give customers what they want, but you know what Jobs said? Jobs was like, "Hey, customers actually don't know what they want. They think that they do, but they actually don't. So I'm just gonna do it my way, and they're gonna like it in the end." Kind of attitude. So people couldn't really figure out how to use iPad, but in the end, they were to get something like use it in restaurants or to write a music. So, and by 2010, Apple had such a good reputation where it's like, okay, I developed something, then people will be like, he developed! Now let's go purchase! They don't know where they're gonna use it, but they're like, okay, we're gonna use it, we're gonna test it. Ah, it's so cool! So this is all the product from Apple. I don't know, can you see? So we have like, this was all up to computers until here where they developed the iPod. But one thing that worries me, so if one thing fails for Apple, for example, if your iPhone just fails or if you ever get your OS hacked, if Mac OS ever gets hacked and it just disrupts all the Apple products, then there's no way of returning. Now look at Apple in 2020. You can see the general trend of Apple is... 근데 one thing sad about Apple is that Steve Jobs actually passed away. I think everyone knows about this fact, but he passed away in 2011. He was only 56 at the time. Now in 2020, we have more products that's sensational. We have 에어버드 있고, Apple Watch 있고, Apple TV 있고, 뭐 있냐 또, like now in 19 we had iPhone 11 with 3 cameras on my phone. What's going on? So the first thing that they're gonna come out with in 2020 is called a new iPad Pro with 3D camera. Next, they're gonna come out with a new keyboard for iPad that has a built-in trackpad. And then a new cheap iPhone to succeed in the iPhone SE series. 그다음에, last, I want to end with quotes from Steve Jobs. They were actually very inspirational. So, for example, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. This comes back to when Steve Jobs says, customers don't know what they know, you know? And I only have a certain time of life, so I'm not going to waste on listening to customers and seeing what they want and following them. I'm just going to do what I do and they're going to buy my stuff. Next, don't let the noise of other opinions drown out your own inner voice. And finally, stay hungry, stay foolish. I actually like this the most. So my final thoughts on Apple product was I actually enjoyed learning about it. Kind of going through how Steve Jobs was fired for his company that he made. They actually offered him to come back and he was like, okay, I'll come back. Like that courage and everything. I applaud to Steve Jobs for doing that. That was it. 자, 여기까지 할게요.